You may be seated.
Woo! Just like church. Okay, so for some of you that stumbled in here, and you're checking your smartphone to see what day it is, we went back to the past. No, we didn't. Good morning, and this is the Christmas Eve service we didn't have the chance to have. Thus, some of the winter wonderland graphics we've had up here. But I do want to welcome you to the Center for Spiritual Living. And as I've been told by the wonderful scientific mystic, Artemis, this is the perfect day to have a Christmas celebration because in the Eastern Orthodox Church, this is Theophany. Did I say it right? Praise God. Which is the manifestation of the Christ. So it's Christ Day. And so we're having a celebration of the Christ, which is a Christ Mass. Sounds a lot like Christmas, doesn't it? Then also, this is the Coptic Christian Christmas Day. Yeah, so for all of you Coptic Christians, we're here for you. It all works out perfectly, and I love Artemis because she'll say things like, it's just wonderful. It's perfect. It's just working out perfectly. And besides that, what we also know is that everything is circling on itself and everything is happening all the time. In God, there is no time or space. In this whole universal thing, human beings make up time so that we can kind of understand everything. And so at any given time, we can have a celebration of the Christ within. So today, we will have a celebration of the Christ within, born within us at all times, always readily available. And that is more of a spiritual teaching than it is a religious teaching. Religions want to dedicate certain days to certain things. Spirituality is just a tiny bit different. And if you are here for one of the first few times and you're wondering what we teach is the difference between spirituality and religion, here's what I would say. Religions often ask us to believe someone else's experience. Spirituality invites us to have our own experience of the divine. So we're here to have an experience today. This is my intention, that we have an experience of the Christ within. That's what today is dedicated to. Now, Christ, let me just define that word a bit. Christ is a Christian word for a universal idea of the spiritual reality or the divine spark within each of us. Not only within each person, but within creation itself. So that's just their word for it. In Hinduism, it would be called the Atman. It is that which lives us and lives through us. Not only us in this community, but all communities, all religious beliefs, in everyone that we love, and it lives within everyone that we don't love. Because God has no favorites. Take a deep breath. Now we facilitate. That's all we do here is we just facilitate things. We facilitate the experience of that Christ within through music and messages. And messages are only reminders. I believe that you already know what you need to know, but you have pretended like you don't know. We are the results of the stories we tell ourselves. And here we are reminded to tell ourselves a little bit bigger story. We do it through reminders of music and message and also through worship. And worship is nothing more than entertaining the divine in the presence of others. Because when you're in the presence of others, the divine seems to be magnified. It's just easier to feel it within ourselves when we're in the presence of others doing the same thing. So now I understand why Rumi would write, and Rumi was a Sufi mystic. He would say, come, come, whoever you are, worshiper, wanderer, come. Even if you've broken your vow 1,000 times, come. So join us this day, this Coptic Christian day, in finding the joy that was promised many thousands of years ago, and that joy, let me just define joy for you, my definition of joy. Joy is absolutely baseless, meaning it's not based on anything. Happiness is based on something. Joy is a quality of the Christ. When you discover that Christ, you will discover a joy that cannot be conditioned out of you. And that would be joy to the world. So, to facilitate this happening, I invite you to be involved. I don't know how to say it. I watched first service. We were singing I know, but still, let's just talk about them. They're not here. I watched first service, listened to Little Drummer Boy. Now I was reading Meister Eckhart last night, and Meister Eckhart was writing at the same time Rumi was, but he was a Christian mystic, so it must have been a good year for mysticism. And Meister Eckhart said something I'd never read before. I'm sure he said it, but I'd never read it before. And what he said is that to change, you must move. To change, you must move. Now, you can interpret that a lot of ways. But I do believe that sometimes we will have an idea and everything stays in this this frontal lobe area. You know, yeah, I really believe it. And you have a whole thinking mechanism called your body. So just, you know, if you hear a good song, you know, you don't have to get crazy. I know that for some of you, spirituality and movement doesn't make sense, but do you know that in most of the world, movement and spirituality go together? Do you know that most of the world moves when they get spiritual? So it's okay to move a little bit. Bob your head, clap, stand up, raise your finger, get excited. Preach, sister. Stand up if you want to. Take it in. Let something resonate within you, because this is the day that Christ can be born again in you. Take it in. And here's to joy.
Peaceful seasons, love every moment, light shines wherever we are. Faith in the darkness, hope in the silence, joy, sweet joy in our hearts. Every day is a choice to share some kindness. We all are part of one family, so connected, our hearts and spirits. For you, you reach out for me. His
today we're going to retell a story. You've heard the story before, right? Yeah. It's a story actually that's grown bigger with time. Most Bible scholars believe that the two Christmas stories, or what we call the Christmas stories, the birth stories, were added after the Gospels they were in had already been circulating. The feast, the Mass, the celebration of Jesus' birth wasn't even a thing until 320, when Constantine decided that December 25th would be a good day to celebrate his birth. So if he can decide when to celebrate, we can decide when to celebrate. For some of you who think, well, you're not Constantine, I am in my own mind, which is the way you need to think about it. How many of you are told when to do stuff? But it really didn't become a thing until 500 AD, when the priests and the missionaries and the church authorities were moving into Northern Europe, and they noticed that the people in Northern Europe were celebrating the winter solstice, so they just said, yeah, well, that's the birth of the earth, and this is the birth of the Christ. It's the same birth. Let's just celebrate together. And so things became a thing. In the 1800s, Christmas was really just something for the more elite. The working class didn't even have a day off, thus the Christmas Carol. It was a true story. They had no real right to have the money or the time to celebrate this. This church holiday, and yet a significant spiritual event. But like all good stories, it continued to grow and grow and grow until it took over the lawns of most U.S. citizens. But what is at the heart of this story is that the universe is involved in human life. Another way of saying that is that God wants to be involved in human predicaments and situations. But this is not just that story, this is a universal story. In the Ramayana, it is the sustainer God becoming involved in the people that were in India at that time. In the story of Krishna, it is, once again, Vishnu becoming involved in the lives of the people in India at that time. What's interesting about Krishna is, this is fun, he too was born to a virgin, and because Vishnu was the father, and at the time, the ruler of that province was told that a great man would be born, so all the male babies, think about this, all the male babies, no, I'm sorry, not all the male babies, all the mothers that were pregnant were put in prison, so Krishna was born in prison. And if it was born a male, they were to be killed, but somehow they snuck the mama and the baby out. Now, what's that sound like? I love it. And then, of course, in Greek mythology, there is lots of divine intervention because Zeus, he liked the ladies. He liked, well, the pretty ladies. He liked all the pretty ladies. And in more modern times, for those of you that love Star Wars, which was created by George Lucas, who was heavily influenced by Joseph Campbell, there too, there was their divine intervention because Atticus, who be Anakin, well, Anakin was born to a virgin who was impregnated by the Force. Get more of that later. So there is something that wants to tell us that the divine, the infinite, is on our side and wants to be involved in our world, no matter what our world looks like. No matter if it's in shambles or not. Rama in the Ramayana was born in a palace. Krishna was born in a prison. Jesus was born in a manger. And those people who first heard the angels were shepherds. And I didn't know that until just recently when I was reading a Christian theologian who said at the time, 2,000 years ago, the shepherds were the outcasts. They weren't civil enough to live in the village, but they hadn't really done anything wrong. They were just a little not quite right. So they gave them a job outside the village with the sheep. So even the ones that are not acceptable, they can hear the angels. So for any of you that think that there's something that I must do, there's something that I must become to somehow be acceptable, to have divine intervention, just remember the shepherds. I just have to say this is someone told me today, and I said, "How are you?" And he says, "Well, better than I deserve." And he thought about it and came back to me later, and he says, "I probably should say it differently, shouldn't I?" But he didn't know how to say it differently. See, we can tell ourselves something for so long, we don't even know how to reframe it. So I said, well, how about when someone asks how you are, how about you say, "I'm great and I deserve every bit of it." Those shepherds, they deserved it. Everyone deserves to hear angels. Everybody deserves divine intervention. Everybody deserves a lift up from spirit. Everybody deserves it. So, what is on your heart today? What issue do you face? Become still. And you go into the manger of your own heart. If you go into the manger of your own heart, there is something that is always saying all is well. God is still speaking. It didn't just appear and then disappear at given times. It's not like one of those waves that sort of shows up and then dissipates. It's always talking. Are we listening? What is it saying? If you look into those areas of your life where you feel most humble because you feel the most out of your element, there is an angel, a high thought saying, "In God all things are possible and all is well." So the story, back to the story, it revolves around a baby, but a baby cannot grow up without someone caring for that baby. So there is Mary, the virgin. The word translated as virgin can also be just young adult, young woman, which makes a lot more sense. It also means pure. So some people have translated that as in pure of body, but it could also just mean pure of heart, pure of consciousness, pure of thought. It would seem as though when we are more pure of heart and thought, it's easier to hear something like, you are the beloved in whom God is well pleased, and you shall bring forth something that's never been before, a son, an idea that will save the world. We can all bring forth those ideas that can save the world if we're listening, if we're not so filled with recrimination that we can't even hear the voice of purity itself. We have to match vibration to vibration. Albert Einstein said you can't solve a problem at the level of the problem. And spirit is above all problems. It is the source of all solution. And our world faces stuff that could have a few solutions. On Christmas Eve, I spoke about a young woman who was inspired in a way to take milk cartons, the plastic kind, the paper plastic kind. She would wash them, sterilize them, somehow chop them up and redo them and create a board that could be made into furniture. So she makes furniture. She and her family makes furniture and builds houses out of this stuff. It only takes 2 million milk cartons to do that. Now that seems like a lot, but we throw away a lot of milk cartons. She's begging for milk cartons. Do you see out of her a solution to what we call trash is being born? Because she listened. And then on my Facebook page, I put yesterday another person, this person is from Mexico, who had the divine idea of how to take plastic, and plastic lasts a long time, and we got plenty of plastic. Well, it only takes, I think it was 2 tons of plastic, and he does a similar process but different, takes the plastic, makes it into what would seem particle board, but he doesn't have to use any trees, and they're building houses out of that in Mexico. So do you see that out of what seems like a problem, an insurmountable problem? How many of you are so disgusted with the amount of plastic ending up in our oceans? Guess what? People are having solutions to that. There is always a solution to everything. There is a solution, a remedy to everything. Are we listening? That's the Mary consciousness. And then there is the baby consciousness, which is original innocence. Are we allowing ourselves to keep our innocence? Before anything happened to you, you were innocent. But we often forget our innocence because we remember what happened and what we did. How many of you have done things? Look at what a great club this is. I'm Kathy Ann, and I've done stuff. Actually, what's happening now that I'm in more of a concentrated meditation practice, I will be doing anything, and stuff will come up, and I'll go, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. And it could be 5 years ago, 5 decades ago. And I just have to let it go, because I did what the best I could do then. And now that I'm different, I know I would have done it different, but I have to let that go. We did a process in Inward Journey last Tuesday where somebody was faced with an issue, which was a big issue. I mean, it's ripe for therapy for at least 5 years. But behind all of that, when you go way back to the beginning, is the innocence. Where are you going to vibrate from? What is your vibration going to be? Whatever you vibrate, you will attract to you. So to find your original innocence, it doesn't mean that you don't have to make amends if you need to. But you come from a place of, wow, I now know better, I would do better. That's the baby. That's the innocent child, born within every soul and cared for in the human heart by Joseph. I've never talked about Joseph. Let's talk Joseph. Joseph is just poor guy left on the sides. And yet an angel came to him, which is a high thought, and said, this child that Mary's going to have, it's going to be important. You need to care for him. This child's going to be great. That is what every parent should hear and what every parent should raise their child for, that they're going to be great. Why? Because they are alive. Now, I know what my mother gave me. My mother gave me take typing classes so you can have something to fall back on. My father gave me work for the government so you'll have a pension. So then you can retire at 60 and have a life. They did not say, Kathy Ann, you are a creation of the universe. You're made of star stuff. And no matter what you go through, there will always be a living presence within you that will carry you through if you depend upon it. And you, like anyone else, are equal to everyone else. And if you listen, something great will come through you. Now, my parents didn't say that to me, so it's my obligation, since every good story has characters, and every character is us. I am Mary, I am the child, and I have to be Joseph. I have to parent myself. I have to say to myself, you know what, Kathy Ann, this seems insurmountable. But with God, all things are possible because you were born for great things. Now, you may not be great in the eyes of the world, but that doesn't matter. You will be great in the eyes of the universe, and that's what counts. So you're here on a mission. Now fulfill it. Be all that you can be. All the love, all the strength, all the wisdom, all the courage, all the encouragement that you can be, Kathy Ann, because you can do it. And that's what you've got to say to yourself. That's Joseph. Now back to Star Wars. Anakin didn't have a dad. So even though he had all this power, nobody was raising him for what he could be. He was on his own. How many of you know people who had great potential and run amok? That story's our story. But at any time we can be born again. Christmas is the rebirth of a potential. It's the rebirth of the earth, and it's the rebirth of potential. No matter how much you run amok, you can be saved. You can save yourself. Start telling yourself a new story. Have Joseph rise up and say, you know what? You are beloved, and you were born for a purpose. Now find that purpose, live that purpose, fulfill that purpose. You can do it. Yay. Now, that is a truth. And you'll check truth out by how it makes you feel. If you feel you're not important, how does that make you feel? When you feel that you have a place in the universe and that the universe counts on you, how does that make you feel? If you know that you were born and you are beloved, how does that make you feel? Truth heals. Truth reveals wholeness. Truth makes you feel full. And truth is what is being born on Christmas Day and evening. I heard this wonderful woman, she was a Christian preacher, and she was doing a Christmas talk, and she said, you know, I just can't believe most of this story. I mean, I believe in Jesus, but I don't believe this story. I had 2 children, and there was no silent night. A bunch of hooey. But I do believe that truth can be born. It can be born on December 23rd, December 24th, December 25th, and January 7th. Truth can be born, and when it is, oh, it is holy. holy.
Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our Savior's birth. Long lay the world in darkness, doubt, and pining, till truth appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, our weary hearts rejoice now, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees. Oh, hear the angel voices. Oh, night divine. Oh, night when truth was born. Oh, night divine. Oh, night Truly we know to love one another. Our law is love, and our gospel is peace. Chains shall we break for our sisters and our brothers, for in God's name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise we, let all within us praise the holy light, and fall on your knees. Oh, hear angel voices. Oh, night divine. Oh, night when truth was born. Oh, night
So just take a moment and have a bit of silence. And ask yourself what truth wants to be born in you this day. And when we hear a message, that's an angel. Angels are high thoughts. deliverers of messages that will save us from what we seem to be dealing with. And frankly, I love being saved. I want to be saved daily from my own stinking thinking. What I said, when people were asking about what New Year's was going to be like, or Christmas Eve was going to be like, I said it's going to be something old and something new. The old is this story, and the new is a new interpretation, a new way of looking at things. And the old way of looking at things, it seems like, is that someone will be divinely inspired and speak from that, and they will attract to them students. They will attract to them people that want to learn from them, and they grow in their presence. But then the teacher, the guru, the master, the prophet goes away, leaves the body, and people then start to move farther and farther away, and then it becomes more on the peripheries about rules that are set up as opposed to the experience. So it's more about how to keep the message alive than the message, and how to not go outside the message than the message. It happens in all philosophies. It happened to Buddha. If you go to some Buddhist temples, you'll see what heaven's like with all of these angels and bodhisattvas. And it has been recorded that when Buddha's students said, "So what's coming after this life?" He said, "It's none of your business. You can't handle this life. Why would I tell you about the next life?" But now they got all these levels of heaven. Jesus said something similar. We get away from the message and we draw diagrams. And remember back at the beginning of this talk, I said that this has to be a shift, and we have to own all of these parts inside of ourselves. Well, another shift, the new way of looking at these stories, is that it's not about a person. Those people that we see as masters and teachers and inspiration need to inspire us to be the same. I think the new way of spirituality is it's not about them, it's always about us. It's not what they did, it's about what we will do. Will they inspire us to do something similar in our own way? Now that's a message that would enroll all of us not to worship, but to truly follow. And follow as in do similar things. For greater things ye shall do, but we'll never do greater things if we think it was them. Every story is about us. Joseph Campbell, every story is our story. The Christmas story is our story. What's going to be born in you? What is going to be fostered in you? What's going to be cultivated in you? What's going to be new in you? Because the Christmas story is in every one of us. Spirituality is not about them. Spirituality is about you and me, and it being in every single one of us.
It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever knowing how. It's in every one of us by and by.
in every one of us.
Is in every one of us.
One, two, three. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow, the snow. I said I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write.
May your days, may your days, may your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
That was Sage and Savannah. They've grown up in this center. They are very powerful. They sang that on Christmas Eve. Think about it. That song will never be sung again. This is the last time that song will be sung at this center. This whole dreaming of a white Christmas thing, we're not doing that anymore. Just telling you. They're very powerful. In fact, Savannah's mother emailed me, Kara. She said, wow, you get two kids to sing, you know, believing, raised in this tradition, and they sing it and it happens. Scary. All right, don't turn these on yet, but have your candles. If you need a candle, raise your hand, and ushers probably have more. Everybody have one? Great. I think we had one person raise his hand. Yeah, right here, if we've got extra candles. Do we have some extra candles? There they come. Thank you, Deborah. Right over here, it was Dave. Dave, did you get yours? You got one, great. One of the things I said, it's in every one of us, and each of us have a gift. We have something that is easy to us, something that we do that's just comes second nature. That's the spark of the divine, the light that we were born with, but oftentimes we take it so much for granted that we don't know that the world might need it, that we could be sharing it. For some people, it's easy to understand health. For some people, it's easy to understand support. For some people, it's easy to understand how families can be harmonious. For some people, it's easy to understand how creativity happens. Whatever your gift is, that's what you should be sharing. That's the beginning of you shifting the world. So in a moment, we're going to be singing a song, and I want you to think about what's yours. What do you do that's so natural, that it's really a gift? And when you know what it is, light your candle. But don't do it until you know, and then take a stand for it.
There is a candle in every soul, some brightly burning, some dark and cold. There is a spirit that brings a fire, ignites a candle, and makes its home. So carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, confused and torn. Hold out your candle for all to see, and take your candle, go light your world. Take your candle, go light your world. Frustrated brother, see how he's tried to light his own candle some other way. See now your sister, she's been wronged and lied to, still holds a candle without a flame. So carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, confused and torn. Hold out your candle for all to see, and take your candle, go light your world. Take your candle, go light your world. We are a family whose hearts are blazing, so let's raise our candles and light up the sky. Pray to the Spirit that lives inside us, make us a beacon through the darkest night. So carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, sun.